we good now?
Yes, and I think the audio has corrected. There was like an echo for a second, but I think we're good.
Okay, good.
Mike
Sorry about that.
Frompa,
Sorry
how are
about
you?
that. Great. I went out to Cleveland, so I'm feeling more energized. I got off the
Refreshed.
computer for a bit. I touched grass. It was grass in Cleveland, so there may be cancer-causing chemicals in my system now, but I
Excuse me,
did.
sir. That is an antiquated view of Cleveland that is severely outdated. But Mike, yeah. So you mentioned it. You went to Cleveland this weekend in support of Nina.
Mhm.
You did some get out the vote efforts. Kind of 10,000 foot view. What was your takeaway? What's the vibe like in Cleveland?
Well, first of all, obvious, I went there. I've been planning on doing something with Nina for a while, and then the AOC announcement was there, and I was like, all right, I should do something.
Mhm.
So basically a few days before I just said to my community, hey, I'm going to Cleveland. Anybody who wants to show up who's in the area, come hang out and let's sign up. And when we showed up, um, there were multiple canvassing locations with hundreds of volunteers. It was packed. Um, Honestly, it felt like Nina's field staff was overwhelmed, but all in all, it felt pretty good to me. I did see some Chantel Brown signs. There is. I did randomly wander into one of her field offices, but it was closed at 9 p.m. And folks, not good, not good sign. It
What was
feels
the
like. Go ahead.
what was the breakdown of campaign signs? Because there was a tweet that was kind of like widely mocked. I think it was from Bill Mitchell in
Mm-hmm.
2016, and he was like, "Oh, you know what? I see a lot of Trump signs, and I see very little Clinton signs. I think that's a reflection of the outcome of the election." People mocked him, but anecdotal, but it was interesting. So what was the kind of the ratio to yard signs that you saw during your time there?
I'd say there was more Nina signs from where I was. But here's what I would say about yard signs. It's like one of those things that doesn't necessarily like mean more people are going to vote for your candidate. It's more like a sign that the candidate is integrated in the community and is like knocking doors and there's an organization doing things and that's a good sign,
Yep.
right? Like, in and of themselves, if you studied it, would you say a yard sign would change someone's vote? Probably not, but it is a sign of something a little bit more deep. Like, is the campaign organized? Is the campaign in those communities? Can supporters go and like get a sign? That seems like it should be easy, but believe it or not, many campaigns find it pretty hard. And so it felt pretty good there. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So you went out. You even talked to AOC. What was that like? And what did she have to say about the race?
Oh, well, the thing she was pretty optimistic. But the question that I ended up posting in my shaky cam cell phone footage on my Twitter account was I asked her about the Democratic Majority for Israel, which is this famous super PAC. And they really got their start by attacking Bernie Sanders for his heart attack. They did this ad in Iowa where they were like, "Oh, I'm not sure that Bernie can beat Trump," and then they had this young woman go, "I'm concerned about his health. He just had a heart attack." So this is the kind of people we're talking about, right? Um, and so they've come in and spent a lot of money on Nina. And when I talked to AOC, she reminded me that it wasn't just Bernie and Nina, but they also came in the Jamal Bowman. They came in for other members of the squad. They have been putting themselves as kind of like the clearinghouse for corporate cash to
Yep.
attack all these progressives. And I feel like this race, the reason why I've been so on the Nina Turner train, obviously I find her really inspiring and I find her really important. And I know you would feel the same way about that. But this is really the fight in the Democratic Party. It's between people who basically see the Democratic Party as their personal piggy bank and people that have an agenda that want to help people, want to use government for positive purposes. And that's what it's about. That and these two candidates represent those factions fully. The one that is plain grifters and versus someone who has a vision and really an earnest desire to see change.
Yeah. We saw that, reflected even in Chantel Brown's, potential ethics probe, and that story that the Daily Poster, Andrew Perez and Walker Bragman reported out, where during her time on the Cuyahoga County government, Chantel Brown didn't recuse herself from the awarding of a contract that ended up going to her husband's or her partner's company for, I think, around $17 million. That's a very serious amount of cash at a county level, that you are married to one of the council members that you just don't remove yourself from the negotiations or deliberations over. I mean, that's a very serious red flag to anybody who's concerned with how government cash and how government contracts are awarded. I mean, we saw for 4 years some pretty spectacular reporting about how Trump and his cronies enriched themselves off the backs of taxpayers. And here you have it at the county level. She's already showing she's willing to at least turn a blind eye to a potential conflict of interest. And no repercussions, nothing. Even not removing herself from the leadership post of the county Democratic Party, which she then used to line up endorsements for herself. So, for some pretty serious ethical red flags that are just going largely unignored after years, again, of meticulous reporting about Trump and his acolytes doing very similar things at the federal level.
Well, I mean, this is standard behavior. Like, this is why she's getting support. I want people to understand that because she's ethically questionable, she is getting more support. All right. It's a feature to these people. And, I used to be a normie and not believe it until I saw it in my own personal experience in Pennsylvania politics. I'd be like, this person's fucking terrible. Why is all this money lining up behind them? And this person's great. And they have a ton of volunteers and a ton of support in their community, and they're not getting it. And it is because the person is corrupt. And it goes beyond that. Like, Clyburn is apparently coming out to the district to try to counter Bernie, who's going out this weekend to stump for Nina. And Clyburn, a lot of people, like him for some of the stuff he did 40 years ago, which was important at the time. But now he's famous because in South Carolina, he kind of got bribed to support Biden. And when I say bribe, what I'm talking about is his daughter was on the board of a super PAC. And, hey, you want this, you want my family's support, pick that super PAC as the official Biden super PAC. And this is kind of how these games are played, is that for a certain type of Democratic Party politician, we make these shady deals. And the fact that Chantel, as you said, this is something that should put her in prison. In a functioning democracy, you wouldn't even be in the opportunity to make decisions about, someone you're in an intimate relationship with getting a contract. I mean, there's no way you can judge that objectively, right?
Right.
So,
absolutely.
That's a feature to her. And, the Democratic majority for Israel, I talked about that in the last question, but they got millions of dollars for an oil and gas guy. That's the money that's being used against Nina right now. Yep. And it's not just that. It's insurance agents and brokers. Go look at who their top supporters are for Chantel Brown. It's every corrupt, terrible organization, literal Republicans. And it is, and this is the 14th most Democratic district in the country. All right. So this is not like, we need to have a reasonable moderate who could get things done because this district, it could flip to the Republicans at any time. No, this is the 14th most Democratic district in the country. And they're trying to put someone on the far right flank in that seat.
Yeah. Yeah. This is somebody whose platform is largely, I will support Biden. I will enact Biden's agenda. I'm a team player. I want to, make inroads, not make enemies, different things like that. And throwing Nina under the bus for not being sufficiently deferential to Biden. And now we have a moment where we have a closing window of opportunity to do anything before August recess and ultimately before they come back. And Congress is largely then focused on getting reelected, because you're going to go into full swing midterm mode. People aren't going to be doing as much. They're going to be, they're going to be spending more and more time in the district because they need to fundraise. They need to meet with voters, things like that. This is really the opportunity to do something big. And the one thing standing in the way is the filibuster. Who do you want in Congress to fight against that? Someone who's saying, I'm on Team Joe, who is clearly saying he doesn't want to end it, or have a little sliver carve out just for voting rights, or someone who wants to shake things up and actually change the system. I mean, to me, the choice is clear. To you, the choice is clear. To people watching, the choice is clear. But for some reason, there's this disconnect and this weird identity and association people have with just the party apparatus. And I cannot understand why people are just so loyal to the party itself as an organization, like it's part of their family. Well, I mean, what do you make of that?
So this is an important part of politics. Like, a lot of politics is identity, and in-group social dynamics. And we tend to believe the best of people that we like this, our side, and we'll kind of forgive their sins. You wouldn't believe the type of sins that people will forgive if they perceive you to be on their side. It's just like, for the greatest example of that is like Bill Clinton himself. Like, this guy's got a Me Too list as long as his arm and a lot of credible allegations. And, you're not going to see a lot of people bring that up who are Democrats, right? And so that's a tradition, because people think it's for the greater good or whatever. And so, the Democratic Party does represent things to some people. And especially in that district, the more power the Democratic Party has, the better that district's going to do, period. Like, a Republican is going to cut services to inner city Cleveland. A Republican, if they get power, it's going to cause real harm to those communities. So there's a certain rationality to it. And one of the things that's frustrating to me in particular is we have communities, we have voices that could be supporting. Like, this is the fight. Like, this is the direction of the party. Like, this is the most significant election we're going to have for years, right? And if Nina Turner wins, that's going to be she's going to be showing up on national media. She's going to be shaping the conversation. The story is going to be that the Medicare for All left is winning another race in a deep blue seat. It's going to help shape a narrative and say that the Bernie Sanders and his legacy continues to grow. If she loses, then it's going to be the opposite side. So the question of why people will forgive literally any crime as long as it's Team Blue, or it's difficult for me. I've always been I always have been a person who believes that we should welcome people in, but at the same time, in these positions of power and influence, we need to have a higher standard. And I don't know how to break people out of that very, red team, blue team mentality.
Yeah. I wish we could. I mean, we would get a lot more done if we could. But, we'd even rectify some of the ongoing horrors. You saw Democrats clamoring during the Trump years to shut down these cages at the border they're keeping kids in, and now they're packed to the brim, in some cases overflowing, with contractors like ServPro administering some of them, who don't even have specialty or specialization in childcare. It's a fire and water cleanup organization. You see more and more counts of abuse at the border. You see a collective silence on Biden's foreign policy, which is effectively a continuation of Trump's. The extension in Afghanistan violated the ceasefire agreement with the Taliban by several months, to which the Taliban said, okay, we're going to resume attacks because you broke off this deal that you negotiated. And now there's people are up in arms, like, oh my gosh, the Taliban is attacking and the Taliban is getting stronger. You broke off the deal with them. I mean, in some ways this was inevitable, but in these areas that Democrats were so vocal about over the past few years, they're silent on. It's much more complex. It's much more nuanced now. It's because they're guys in charge. It's extremely, extremely frustrating. But someone like Nina getting elected would speak out about that and would add another voice to the squad. We see even today, Ilhan Omar introduced an amendment that would end or block all sales of U.S. arms to human rights abusers, which is like, a vast majority of our clientele around the world. So that would be a huge dent in the military-industrial complex. But she's an army of one.
Well, right, and when you talk about, so this is kind of like, I don't know if you have touched on the Medicare for All march for Medicare for All, or if you want, you can wave me off on this topic if you don't want me to talk about it.
You can go for it, but after I saw speakers like denouncing Medicare for All, I kind of checked out.
Yeah, so I mostly stayed silent too about it because, I don't like to trash people when they're doing, activism for an issue that I care about. But the topic, that's not what it was. It was just kind of like we used the brand of Medicare for All, which is something that Bernie Sanders built, right? Bernie Sanders supported single payer healthcare. And he said, how can I come up with a name of a single payer healthcare plan that will translate to the everyday American? Well, they like Medicare. Every senior citizen likes their Medicare. What if I just take that positive brand and I use that to talk about single payer? So that's his innovation. Or he picked up the ball. I don't want to claim that he's definitely the first person to say Medicare for All, but that was the thing. And his presidential campaign was what brought that to the fore and made it popular. 85% of Democrats support Medicare for All in polling. And so now we have these organizations that are out there and they're using something that is an innovation of Bernie Sanders and his progressive followers. And they're using it to attack those people and saying like, you're not doing the tactic I said, or you're not saying what I said. You didn't come on my podcast. You didn't come on my show. You didn't come to this event that I organized. Therefore, you're a traitor of Medicare for All. Mm-hmm. That's not how it works, folks. They have a strategy, and Bernie Sanders lost the primary. It was shady. It was not fair. The system was always going to be structured against him, but at the end of the day, they succeeded at defeating Bernie. So the quick route to Medicare for All has been foreclosed. We're back into the long struggle again. A lot of people don't like to hear that. A lot of people want to have instant gratification. They don't want to realize that it's going to take us, some more years to get back in the same position we were in 2019 when Bernie Sanders was a front runner, right? We have to deal with the fact that Joe Biden is in opposition to Medicare for All. And so we have to build our own insurgency in the Democratic Party, and we've got to keep building it. The good news is it's building up. Yeah. And Nina Turner represents that opportunity, and we got a week. That's what you should be focusing on. If you're focusing on anything else but Nina Turner and your political, as your primary political thing you're talking about right now, you're probably wrong. And that's my judgment.
No, I agree. You can make the case that an inside versus outside. You could debate an inside versus outside strategy. I think that's totally fair. I think if you want to do that on your own time, go for it. But I think some people who advocate more for the outside strategy, like that on the instant gratification point, I think is a strong one, because what they wanted so badly, especially with the force the vote stuff for Pelosi, was just a scalp. And in the end, their best case scenario, they didn't even get one. They wanted to exchange votes for the speakership for a floor vote for Medicare for All, which they acknowledged would be a defeat. And I think would have been a bigger blow in the cause. That would have been even another setback immediately on the heels of Bernie not getting the nomination to the overall cause for Medicare for All. It never made any sense to me.
Well, so to jump on, this is a point that I've been making for a long time, which is like, I want to force the vote for Medicare for All. I want to have a vote on it, of course. But the purpose of the vote is to pass the bill. The purpose of the vote is not for it to go down in flames. Yep. It's to pass the bill. And when you talk about we need to force the vote so that we know who to primary. Well, we already know who to primary. They're not on Medicare for All. Okay. They're not.
They don't sponsor
hundreds of people. There's hundreds of people, and the two here's something, Jordan, that I am a tiny bit proud of. It wasn't just me who did it. It was a huge activists of people all across Pennsylvania. And there are 4 Democrats in Pennsylvania that support Medicare for all. There is one of them who's the congressman from Pittsburgh, one who's the congressman from Philadelphia, and 2 more. One is Susan Wild, and the other is Matt Cartwright. And those 2 are in swing seats. So the 2 swingiest seats in Pennsylvania, Matt Cartwright's seat, and Susan Wild's seat, they're both on Medicare for all as co-sponsors, right? That's where I live. That's where. So in my local area, I've done my job. My local Congress people know who I am. They know the organizations that support Medicare for all. And we have earned their support, and we convinced them that it was a good thing to support, and they're signed on now. So if that can happen in my swing seats, if you have a Democratic rep and they're not on Medicare for all, what are you doing? You should be working on that. And don't worry, don't expect someone else to do it. This is the one thing I always try to tell people. Don't expect someone else to do it. Don't expect some sort of angel from heaven to give you Medicare for all. You need to be doing it. You need to be engaged in the activism. If you believe enough in politics to listen to TYT or watch my stream or watch your stuff, Jordan, then you should be involved locally as well. Join your DSA, join MoveOn.org, join Democracy for America, join those local organizations. And there's a million of them like that are in your area, and do that activism and talk to your congressperson and put pressure on them. That is how you get it done. And then when you have a chance for a Medicare for all candidate to win, you support them. And this forced to vote nonsense, the problem with it is they say it's the primary people, right? They don't vote for it, then we primary them. Well, Nina Turner's running for Congress right now against someone who's against Medicare for all. This is the time to be engaged in that race. And where are these people?
No, they're upset that she didn't want to leave her district on a weekend where she had a plan to go knock on doors the weekend you were there. She didn't go 2 hours outside of her district to show up to an event where the people participating have been attacking her and the people canvassing with her for months. That was their big gripe. Other than that, I did see some reports. Speakers were upset that the squad didn't retweet speakers enough. So that's kind of what they're thinking, their worldview, and their main gripes of all this.
I'm sorry. I'm so fired up about this because I was out there in Cleveland, and I was there with Nina. I was there with AOC. I was there with members of my community doing real work, which I love them for doing it because I didn't really plan it good enough. It was just like, shit, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night if Nina Turner loses. I saw the millions flowing in, and I was like, I gotta go and just do phones or something. Like, I gotta, there's going to be nothing for the next year, right? Like, that I can make an impact. This is the only time we can do it. And when I saw people like online kind of trashing AOC or Nina because they were doing the one thing they should be doing, which is getting Nina Turner in office, I really have a hard time not hating those people. I really do, because, I know a lot of them profited from using Nina's image. That's another thing. Like during the Bernie campaign, Nina did so many amazing events, and a lot of people promoted themselves off of that or got clout from that. And it's like, I heard people saying they wanted her to be Bernie's VP. And now it's real. And you're bitching at her because she didn't leave her district to go to Columbus for 10 people?
Yep.
Are you kidding me? And so those, and ultimately, like, I think one of the things that people underestimate about the online left is it's actually part of the strength of the squad. It's part of the strength of Bernie Sanders is the online community. Like, we can raise money for people. We can go around the traditional media gatekeepers. Like, our non-traditional stuff is actually important, but it can't win a race on its own. It has to be married with a strong local organization. And, to see Nina working on that, I want us to, if we're on the online left, to remain sane and useful and recognize that while what we can do can be an asset, it can in fact be harmful.
Totally. it's a great tool for getting information. It's very easy to kind of warp your perception. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Getting involved at a local level is something that so many people overlook. It's like, okay, I voted, I donated, I did XYZ, and then that's it. Now I wait 2 years until the next cycle. There's so many different things you could be doing to prepare. How are we going to build up a stable or a roster of progressive candidates who get experience at the local level before moving up? The Democratic establishment has this in place. Young Democrats, college Democrats, these types of organizations are feeder systems for people who ultimately end up going to be corporate politicians. But on the progressive left, you're really, it's really few and far between. We've got RREV, which isn't huge, and you've got DSA. No. Those are the two who are mostly the progressive left. Move On does a lot, but they don't have that kind of membership local chapter base like the other organizations do. So, I mean, my suggestion is if you want to get involved, join your local DSA chapter, because they are the ones who, even on other things outside of Medicare for All, they've generated hundreds of thousands of calls on the PRO Act, which would transform labor rights in this country. It would update the Labor Relations Act. It would strengthen union protections for workers. This is hugely, hugely important. Exactly. And DSA is actually doing the work on that to very little fanfare. So if you want to get involved, my suggestion is join your local DSA chapter.
Well, this is actually really important stuff. And this is the stuff I talk about every day, which is like, legislatively right now, there is not a reckoning with the logic of what the filibuster supporters are saying, which is that nothing will ever get passed through Congress again when the Democrats have the majority. That isn't reconciliation. Because Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are out there and they have uniformity, right? They say we're not voting for anything, right? And if the Democrats say, well, we have to have a filibuster, well, we're never going to pass the PRO Act. We're never going to pass the Equality Act for gay rights. We're never going to pass, the Green New Deal, or even this, the reconciliation part of the infrastructure bill. Unless we use reconciliation, right? We're not going to pass, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act or the We the People Act. And there's the Fair Wage Act, which is a $15 minimum wage. All that stuff is never passing because we're never getting 60 senators. If you go and look at the race for Senate, I mean, the Democrats have best case scenario is 54 senators, and they're on defense. They have a senator in Montana they've got to defend. They've got a senator in Ohio they have to defend, and they're at 50 right now. Mm-hmm. The odds of us ever getting 60, that's just not real. That's never happening. So if the Democratic Party is ever going to pass an agenda, it has to get rid of the filibuster. I mean, it's just that simple. And to not see Joe Biden out there saying like, hey, I miss the 60s or whatever year he thinks they work together on. It's pretty disheartening to me. And that's why we need people like Nina Turner. We need like more people like Markey. Markey was another race, to bring up a race that we had earlier this year. The centrists tried to primary Markey from the right with a Kennedy. It didn't matter that he'd been a good Democrat for decades.
Yep.
He was not a corporate Dem. So they're going to bring in a Kennedy and spend millions of dollars in Massachusetts to try to primary him from the right. That's where the Democratic Party money's going.
Yep.
So when people say Joe Biden is good or harm reduction or anything like that, I can't help but look at the laws that are rotting and the fact that he's not using the bully pulpit to pressure, these people to get rid of the filibuster.
Yeah, I mean, he's got this like nostalgic fever dream that he thinks somehow everything is magically going to come back, and it's so detached from reality. I mean, we're such a hyper-partisan, polarized society now. Nothing is going to, even come close to touching what he longs for in terms of 60s, 70s bipartisanship. But those days are long since past. And on the filibuster itself, Republicans are absolutely going to kill it the next chance they have. They're absolutely going to kill it if it gets in their way of doing anything that they want to benefit the corporate state in America. So we're wasting our time. Look at how they're responding to the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They're stomping their feet. They're dragging their feet. They're refusing to negotiate. They're letting it fizzle because they know time is running out. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna work with you on anything. And the nanosecond they have an opportunity to kill the filibuster when they take power back, they're going to do it because they want to enact their agenda. They are craven yes. opportunists, and that's why they beat Democrats so consistently.
Well, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I don't have a problem with them doing what they're empowered to do within the law, right? Like, if the law says you can not bring up a right wing, like a judge. This Constitution doesn't say this. The Senate has to bring up the nominee. So they didn't. And if the shoe was on the other foot and it was Trump trying to appoint some crazy and the Democrats had the Senate, I wouldn't want them to bring it up. So, complaining that they do the things they're allowed to do, it's one thing if they bring military troops in there to intimidate people or, break the law. But if they're empowered within the parliamentary system to do what they're doing, that's what their power is. It's sort of like this. I have an analogy. It's basically like you are playing football against another team and you promise not to throw a pass as long as they don't throw a pass, right? And they say deal, you have the ball, you run it 3 times up the gut, they run a goal line defense, they stack you up, you punt it, and then the first play out, they come out with 5 wide receivers. And you say, but you promised. And they say, the rules don't say I can't pass, so I'm fucking passing it. I'm sorry you decided to keep an unenforceable promise. I'm trying to win this game. The fact that you fell for it, I mean, we agreed to the rules. That's football. If you didn't want me to pass, change the rules of football. Until then, let's play the game that's on the field. Yeah. And, that's the thing that I think everybody should really hammer home. If you ever have this conversation about the filibuster with someone and they're like, well, we got to keep the filibuster because we might need it in the future. The filibuster is not in the Constitution. The majority chooses whether there's a filibuster or not. If in the future the Republicans decide they don't want the Democrats filibustering them, they can get rid of it. Just because we let them filibuster us for 10 years doesn't matter. There's no coupons for you filibustered us, now we're going to redeem it. They have the right to change those rules whenever they want. And the thing is, we've already seen it. It's when they did it for Supreme Court judges. They appointed Supreme Court judges by changing the rules for the filibuster. They'll do it again if they need to. So keeping this filibuster does nothing but block the left and the Democrats from their own agenda and nothing to stop the Republicans in the future. It's an unenforceable promise.
Yeah, it is. It's frustrating to watch with so many looming crises. We have a healthcare crisis. We've got a looming existential climate crisis. We've got crumbling infrastructure. I mean, we're going to see more coastline eroding, underwater buildings crumbling, extreme weather, which will soon just be referred to as weather. These are things that need responses now, and we're just clipping our own wings because to be nice. And
well, I don't think it's to be nice, Jordan. I don't think it's to be nice. I know TYT covered this and I did too, but when those lobbyists were talking about, HR1 and they did all this poll testing on all of HR1's provisions, like, the public financing of elections, the donor release, the banning gerrymandering, the early voting, the automatic registration. And issue after issue on that bill, they were getting huge support, and they couldn't come up with any messaging to attack HR1. And they were like, well, we can't find any argument that makes even conservative Republicans oppose it. And so they said, we're going to have to do a below the dome solution. And that means they were going to go to their bribed politicians like Joe Manchin, and they were going to act stupid, like, oh, I just want to work across the aisle, and this is for the institution. But it was because they're opposed to the policy. It has nothing to do with like wanting to be nice. Like, Joe Biden is acting this way because he's against the policy, but he knows that being publicly against it is unpopular. This is the Hillary Clinton private position, public position again, right? His public position is, I just want to work with those darn Republicans. And his private position is, I don't want to pass HR 1 because I don't want to have my corporate money reined in. And that is the tension we're in right now, is a Democratic Party that's inherent contradictions is barreling straight towards an implosion.
Yeah, it's great to be on the receiving end of what is going to be a horrific, bleak future. But on a brighter note, I mean, we have Nina that we can work on now, at least to try to chip away at some of this shit. Mike, do you have any predictions for the special election?
Man, okay, so was that when I was on the phones for Nina, like, it was funny because I called this one person and they were like, listen, I don't tell anybody about my vote. And I was like, okay, I respect that, but let me tell you some of the reasons why I'm passionate about Nina. And I talked about how she wanted to cover eyeglasses and hearing aids and dental care for people on Medicare. I talked about the $15 minimum wage, because it was an older person who I was talking to. And they were like, well, I'm passionate about Nina too. So, I ended up marking them down as supporting Nina. But that was the type of conversations that I was having. Another person I talked to was for. So, like, I think Nina's going to win. I think she has, the greater name recognition, the more endorsements, the more money, the more volunteers. She's got all those things. But we're going to see just how much support money can buy with Chantel Brown, who is a total nothing and a fraud. Yep. And we're going to see what the negative ads and what that money can do for you in a primary. And you're going to see it. So I hope and I pray and I feel that Nina's going to win, but you never know. And when millions of dollars are spent on a race, it gets unpredictable.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, the millions that have been spent by groups like DMFI and now Third Way is getting in the race, that took the lead from double digits down to single digits. Chantel Brown had 15% of the vote in an early poll when Nina had 50%. And now it's neck and neck. So yeah, it's going to be a perfect encapsulation of how influential super PACs, corporate money, dark money, etc. can be in a race like this, to shift people's perceptions, because they're not running ads saying Chantel Brown is great. Look at all the great things Chantel Brown has done. The vast majority of this spending has been to smear Nina Turner. It's been mailers with outright lies about what she stands for and what she believes. It's been attack ads to say she hates Joe Biden, she won't do anything for you. It is all negative, below the belt shit. That's what they're running. That's millions of dollars in smear ads like that. That's how influential this kind of stuff can be.
And notice that they're fighting below the belt, but they wouldn't do that against a Republican. That's the thing that's funny, is like that, they're not gonna, they wouldn't go below the belt because the corporations love that shit. Republicans do, like, so that money's not gonna be there to be below the belt against the Republican. And, I know the Democratic Party can fight. I've seen them fight progressives, in my personal life. I've seen them fight, in races that I've been a part of and ones that I've seen from the outside, like Nina's. And it always seems like there is this kind of rigged game where, if the Democrats or the leftists don't lose the primary, well, then they're just shut up and color and support the centrist. But if the centrist loses, it's, run as a write-in. Literally endorse a Republican, which, so we're seeing the writing thing up in there in Buffalo right now with India Walton. She won the Democratic primary for Buffalo mayor as a Democratic socialist, right? And now the Democratic mayor incumbent is running as a writing campaign. Or, Kara Eastman there in Omaha, Nebraska, right? That was a swing district there in Nebraska, and she won the Democratic primary. And what did the former Democratic rep do? Literally endorsed the Republican. So that is the kind of situation that we're facing, and there's a list a mile long. Ben Jealous in Maryland, running for governor, or I could go on. But Bob Wallace there in Pennsylvania won in the Bucks County. you have, time after time after time, the Democratic Party has done their best to defeat people who are on the left when they win primaries, and trying to fumble the ball to the Republican. That I think that's one of the reasons why we need to see change, why we're having such problems getting literally anything done, even though they control everything. It's because of, I would call them snakes in the grass, that are in the Democratic Party.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And as people in the chat are pointing out, in Buffalo, I think that the city council is now evaluating government structures that don't even include having a mayor, which is very clearly targeted toward stripping her of power and just moving on without her, because they don't like the outcome of the election, which is something that I've been told Democrats feel very strongly about right now. Is you need to respect the outcome of the election, but I guess when it doesn't go your way, it's okay to throw a fit and try to redo the government a different way. Very frustrating stuff, very disheartening stuff. And one more point on Ohio, and you talk about how we don't see this kind of stuff toward Republicans. There is, right. You mentioned earlier, there is an open Senate race because Portman is retiring. So you've got Ohio, people like J.D. Vance, who is citing like white nationalists in Europe and their family policies there as inspiration. And on top of Josh Mandel, who was like a Christian fascist, versus maybe Amy Acton, the health commissioner, or Tim Ryan. Nothing, on the left, nothing great, but still both are better than the two guys you have on the right. Right. And you would think they would want to be building up a war chest in support of whatever Democrat wins the primary, but no, they are focused on burning through millions in a safe seat in Cleveland because they don't want the progressive to get into the House.
Well, Jordan, I think you're 90% there. What you have to realize is that this money going to Chantel Brown is Republican money.
Yeah,
it's corporate money. Okay, so they would never spend it against a Republican in a general, but they're trying to buy the most right-wing candidate they can out of a seat they know is going to be a Democrat. That's it. If you could get someone who will be against the inheritance tax and a D+50 seat, and you support that person with your if you're a rich piece of shit, right? If you're an insurance company and you don't want anyone supporting Medicare for all, you go and support Chantel Brown. And that's what's happening. That is what's happening. And here's the thing about the Democratic Party and why it's intellectually bankrupt as an organization is they should be opposed to Chantel Brown because of what she represents, but they love it. That's who Marcia Fudge is, who left. That's who these people are. That's who Joe Biden is. He was the personal senator from the credit card companies in Delaware. There's a famous quote of him saying that he would prostitute himself for his donors. That is... which is an insult to sex work because sex work is real work. And Joe, you're not doing sex work. You're just doing corruption. And so that's the environment we're in. And that's why this race in particular is so important. That's why building up the Justice Democrats is so important, and building up that progressive caucus, which Bernie Sanders started, what was it, 20 years ago, chat? And it had 3 people. And now it's, it's over 100 now. Not all of them are perfect, but we are building something up. And I can see, just from my experience in politics for the past 10 years, I can see that Overton window moving. I can see the progress being made. Is it fast? No. But I can see it happening right before our eyes. So there is reason to have hope and not just frustration or despair. Look at the wins that we're racking up. Look at the leaders that we're building up. All the most exciting leaders are on the left in the Democratic Party. The center is just void.
Yeah, I mean, they've got nothing to stand for, nothing to run on. And if it's a point of inspiration, think about how marriage equality evolved over the years. It was very slow, and then all of a sudden, all at once, you had a few states here, and then bam, within the span of 18 months, just everything happens. And then you have all these states recognizing marriage equality. You have the Windsor case, which killed DOMA, which is a federal recognition, and then 2 years later, Obergefell, which legalized it nationwide. And it was a long, tough fight, but it was tons and tons of losses, some setbacks, but with a few gains here and there, and then bam, it got to the point where public perception shifted so much it was undeniable. And even in the Supreme Court, John Roberts acknowledged just like the public support for marriage equality. He didn't end up. He didn't end up voting for it, but it was.
Yeah.
He at least knew. He at least knew it was happening, and that was a huge factor. And that's what ultimately. I mean, Kennedy ultimately like supported that kind of stuff way back into the '90s, but or early 2000s. But yeah, it was all. It was like slow and steady, and then all at once. So these wins, if we get another one with Nina, is just building up to a longer. Progressive change, and I remain optimistic. I hope she'll win. I think it'll be close, but I think she'll win.
Yeah, I think it'll be closer than we'd like, but it doesn't matter. Win by one is a win,
Yeah.
And I tend to, once people see Nina Turner as their rep and they see what they get, she's going to be in there for as long as she wants it. And it gives her a secure platform for her to look for even, bigger opportunities in politics, right? The congressional seat is nothing small. That's a big deal. That's an important thing in this country. And, Nina being able to be out on her own, making these arguments, because she's just inherently, to heap more praise on Nina, is just like, she is charismatic. She is telegenic. She is well-spoken. And she has a way of speaking that people just want to see. And so when she has power behind that eloquence, that's going to persuade a lot of people to our side. And that's what I am, so excited about, and why, I'm spending my blood, sweat, and tears on Nina. And I hope all of you do too, because, this is the next generation of leadership, and we need to build a bench.
Absolutely. Mike, I don't want to keep you too long. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, if you like in-depth political commentary, you can try twitch.tv/central_committee. We tend to speak less about Twitch-related drama stuff. So if that's more your speed, there are other channels for you. We're more the type of person that will read about today. One of the stories we covered was that Omaha is unpaving some of their roads. They have a Republican mayor, so instead of wanting to spend money on paving, they are turning their roads into gravel roads to try to save money. Even though, Omaha's population is growing and they, business is doing okay, they, don't want to pay their taxes. So those are the type of topics we'll cover. And of course, occasionally we do real politics and interviews. So come check out Central_Committee, and Mike from PA on Twitter. And I have a lot of exciting announcements that are really going to get even more of my fans fired up coming soon.
Yes, we've heard about the announcements. Keep an eye on Mike's channel and on his Twitter account, which I hear AOC now follows. The famous
AOC's been following me for months. She's been following me for months. Okay,
and I'm sure go way back.
Yeah, you're an AOC follower, right? Like, she follows you, right?
She does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So we can just, this is the AOC follow club. We should set one of those up, right?
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew Yang also follows me for some reason, even though I've trashed him a lot.
Yeah, and I made fun of him the entire mayoral election, and he just never hit unfollow.
The whole presidential thing.
Man. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Anytime, Jordan. Anytime. Just get me on the pod next. Like, what the fuck?
We will. Rob and I were talking about that the other day. So yes, we're gonna extend the invite the next couple of weeks. He's on vacation right now.
And remind me, I want to get back into Magic too. So,
dude, yes, I got you.
Do you have like a whole bunch of gems you can get me? I'll start it off. Like, these are the type of things that we need. These are the type of mogul moves I need to make. Is what I'm trying to do.
I gotta check on the gems because my guy left Wizards, so I have to check with my new guy. But probably, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. We should do some sort of heads up match. I haven't played
Oh,
since like 2014. So
absolutely. Yeah, and they just shifted, they just rotated. There's a new mode in there for the new rotation. So
oh,
it's
hell yeah,
pretty
dude.
fresh.
Hell yeah. So all right, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Of course, of course. Thanks, Mike.
Have a good one.
See ya.
We do politics here every morning starting at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. You can watch us here on Twitch. We're the morning guy, the morning politics guy, Politics Frogs, in every single day, same time, 10 a.m., day in, day out. And we carry you through your morning and early afternoon politics needs. And if you need more, Mike from PA, we have a YouTube channel. We talked about suburbs, the My Pillow guy, Ted Cruz. We talked about DSA. Amazing. Making fun of Tim Pool. Amazing. Look at all of these amazing videos. Get in there, watch them. We have me on Twitter. You got to follow me on Twitter, chat. I'm at 20,614 subs. That means I got like 40 followers on Twitter in the last day. You can do better than that. You can do better than that. Go follow us on Twitter. And of course, join the Discord, where we have an incredible community of left-wing streamers. We have left-wing community. We talk about the stream. We talk about politics. There's gaming content. It's a really awesome, supportive place. Direct action, mutual aid, and you can just let off some steam. And also, you can help produce the show. One of the things I do is I look at the links that are put into the news content suggestions chat room on the Discord. Join the Discord, come hang out, and maybe what you want me to talk about will be part of the next show.